Hello Without Apology listeners. Thank you so much for joining us this week. We just wanted to let you know that the lovely Sophia Fisher will be talking about human trafficking in this episode. Some statistics she gives may be disturbing, but we encourage you to listen because awareness of this issue needs to be spread. Thanks again. Remember to follow God without apology.
What's up, gamers? Welcome to my stream.
What's up, gamers?
What's up, everyone? Without Apology, Season 2, Episode 31. We are launching Season 2, and it is only fitting that myself, River Harter, Stevan Gamauf, would be back here once again with Sophia Fisher.
Yes.
Amen to that.
I'm excited to be back. This is great.
The first and only returning guest. Yeah?
I'm trying to think.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, no, that is true.
The only returning
Yeah.
guest, because no one wants to come back.
Wow, that just got really sad
Just
really
kidding.
quickly.
Just kidding.
That is complete
Man,
lie.
you're trying to push me down to a real deep depression now.
Hey, man. Whoa.
Dang.
My anxiety's going
Wow,
all
we
over the place.
We really
All
took
right.
a deep turn there
All
on that
right.
one.
I kid. I don't feel that way right now.
Anyways,
Okay.
Isaac, we brought Sophia back.
From the dead.
Not from the dead. She was definitely not dead. She's actually doing a lot
From
what
the
I'm hearing.
depths.
She's doing a lot of different stuff. So Sophia, tell us what you've been up to since
What are you doing?
since you
Yeah.
come back.
You know, I'm excited to be back on the podcast with you guys. Since the last time I was on the show, I actually launched a nonprofit organization. Some of you might have seen that. Yeah, it's been awesome to see that grow. We launched in January of this year, so we are super new. I think I came on in the fall of last year, right? And so
Yeah.
it's been some time. But in January we launched this year, and we're a digital campaign dedicated to combating human trafficking through educational content.
What's it called?
Stop the Demand Project.
There you
Oh.
go. There you go.
Project.
Stop the demand. The demand for what? Enlighten us.
Yeah. So human trafficking is growing exponentially, especially during the pandemic. It continued to grow. I was under the impression, I don't know about you guys, but when COVID hit, I thought, okay, I was already, such a big advocate, speaking out about this issue. I thought, it would decrease. People were inside more.
Right.
Naturally, I thought, we would see numbers falling. It was the exact opposite. I mean, I know you guys know that domestic abuse increased, substance abuse, all these other things increased as well, and human trafficking was one of those.
Yeah.
So that's what happened during the pandemic. Human trafficking began to increase. Well, what's crazy is that human traffickers found new ways to exploit modern day technology. With that said, they found new ways to exploit it, but what also happened during the pandemic? Social media usage increased.
Yep.
So not only do you have traffickers finding new ways because everyone's inside to exploit technology, you have this combination, or that coupled with the fact that all of these teens who are the most vulnerable for human trafficking online and susceptible to that. Did you know that 1 in 5 children are sexually solicited online before turning 18?
What?
Right?
That's ridiculous.
I did not know
That's
that.
ridiculous.
1 in 5. 1 in 5.
What is sexually solicited?
So sexually solicited would be, let's say, for example, let's make a scenario up. Let's say some profile is on Instagram, whether he's pretending to be someone that he's not, or just directly messaging a 14-year-old girl on Instagram. He would be, it could be sexting, it could be asking for nudes, it could be sexually charged messages, all of that. From January to September of 2020, right, so during the pandemic, compared to that of 2019, online child enticement reports increased by over 98%. So what we're seeing is all these trends.
What?
Traffickers are adjusting their models. They've always targeted vulnerabilities, but they're changing the way in which they do that. So, and if we want to combat human trafficking and we want to know where it's happening, we have to look to those numbers. They're using technology to target the most vulnerable. So once I found out about that, that's why I launched Stop the Demand Project, because what we're looking to do, we're a digital campaign. What we're looking to do is use technology for good. Traffickers are using technology for evil. We want to use technology to talk about this issue because over 90% of Gen Z is on social media. The average age a teen is trafficked in America is 12 to 14 years old. 12 to 14.
What
Gen Z
in the world?
is about 12 to 14 to like mid-20s, right?
Yeah.
That's Gen Z. We're Gen Z. We use social media all the time. Your podcast is going up on social media. The way that you market it, social media.
Yeah.
That's how we communicate.
Yeah.
Traffickers aren't stupid. They're using technology to find their victims a lot of the times. Not always, but a lot. What can we do to reach people, one, to talk about what's happening, because this conversation is not at the forefront.
Yeah.
It's in every single zip code in America, but yet so many of us are quiet about it. What can we do to make social media a platform for this discussion, as well as provide resources and training, and as well as recognize that, you know, there are survivors and victims that need help. So what we do is, it's twofold. We talk about the issue. We have a team of amazing ambassadors that, you know, work to educate people on this topic. And I think that's beautiful, right? Like, we have people that are their same age. That's our target market, Gen Z. I mean, anyone can come to our page on social media and learn and take advantage of the resources we put out. But it's really for anyone to learn. But we target Gen Z.
Yeah.
They are the ones targeted the most. And we have our team of ambassadors who speak to Gen Z, because we listen to our peers the best.
Yeah.
Right.
So
Heck
if
yeah.
we really want to reach people, we're going to use people that, you know, are a part of that age bracket. So that's what we're doing. We have a team of amazing ambassadors that are working to push out content, and then it's twofold, right? So that's the first part. We have amazing ambassadors and a team working to push out videos, graphics, talking about what's happening. There's a huge gap between the information out there and what people actually know. There's the Global Slavery Index, you have the Trafficking in Persons report, but how many people are actually going to pull up a 500-page document report and be like, this is what's happening in my community, here's how I can help? No, like, most people aren't going to do that.
Right.
So what our team is dedicated to doing is pulling up those resources, finding that, and then making it into social media graphics. Oh, now I understand that 50 to 60% of kids that are trafficked are coming out of the foster care industry. I understand that now because I'm reading these stats and I'm putting that out. So stuff like that and information like that, we don't talk about it, but we put it out in content that people can understand, and it's hard stuff, and it almost makes you go like, whoa, because when I read this stuff, like, I almost don't believe it. It's that sad.
Yeah.
But we have to do it because we need to talk about it.
Yeah.
So it's twofold. That's the first part. And the second part is the resources and the training. We don't offer it on behalf of Stop the Demand. What we do is we want to create a hub for resources. There's already, a ton of nonprofits and coalitions and task forces that are really honing in on this issue and doing a lot. But they don't have much attention. They maybe have a lack of funding or volunteers.
Yeah.
So what we're looking to do is create the content and educate people. And then the second part of that is create a hub for resources. Oh, you come to our page, you're going to find out about this organization, this organization, this organization. You're going to find ways to get training. You're going to find ways to get involved in your state and your community. And you're going to leave having all this information ready to like take and run with.
Yeah.
Right. What are the resources that are provided? Like, how are those like used and equipped by like the people that are looking for those?
Definitely. So what we would, well, I guess it's not necessarily us that's providing the resources. We have 3 partners right now. We're partnered with Atlantic Counter Trafficking, Adaptive Operations, and 1211 Partners. And what they do under this umbrella of human trafficking, right, there's so many ways that you can fight it. Some of our partners are providing actionable intelligence to law enforcement so that they are learning how to combat this, because that's another big issue, is that law enforcement doesn't know how to recognize victims all the time.
Yeah.
I think the DOJ put out this study in 2019, and they were finding that most human trafficking cases are underreported. I think like 90% go underreported, only 10% are reported.
Wow.
So when we look at the numbers and we're like, okay, Ohio has 1,000 like reported cases each year. I'm just rounding, right?
Yeah.
Well, how many are actually not brought up? Like, that's still a lot.
Yeah.
I'm not going to downplay
Right.
that, but that's just one area where we can fight it, right?
Yeah.
Law enforcement needing resources. Okay, then we have other organizations we're partnered with that focus on the survivor aftercare. A lot of survivors that are trafficked, they live for an average of about 7 years after. So, like, it's important to extricate victims. It's important to, like, focus on rescuing them and educating people. But under this umbrella of human trafficking, okay, well, we have to focus on the victims. We have to give resources to law enforcement. Like, there's so many ways in which people can help. So when people ask, like, how do I fight human trafficking? You know, I ask you, like, well, where would you like to help in this fight? You could be a social media advocate.
Yeah.
Go do that. Have a conversation at your dinner table, too. That's powerful because conversation. Or go be a part of the task force in your community. We're in Summit County. The Summit County has a collaborative task force that I'm a part of. We actually have a meeting tomorrow, which is awesome. Super excited. Anyone can join that. You know, these are things that we're not talking about. But we're partnered with these amazing organizations. And so when people come to our page, they can click the link tree in our bio. We're working on our website. We're going to have that launch in about a few weeks, which I'm super excited about. But the link tree right now acts as that hub.
Yeah.
So if you click it, what you'll see is take our free training here to spot the signs of human trafficking.
Yeah.
It's not always going to look the same. It can look different, but that can help people identify victims, especially, since this isn't talked about enough. What are some things you can look out for? That's just an example of a resource we would offer. Or, hey, have you considered mentoring victims? Have you considered volunteering for this organization that might need more people to get the word out? So there's a bunch of different ways in which people can get involved, and we make sure that we have those all on our page so that people can scroll through and choose where they want to get involved.
Wow.
Dang.
A lot of this is just kind of like coming to me for the first time, and I'm like not even realizing a bunch of these statistics.
It's a lot to
what?
take in.
Frightening.
It can almost like sometimes like it's easy for me just to get in the routine to like talk about things. Like, I have like, amazing opportunities to go and speak about this, and I'm thankful that the Lord has like opened doors for me to like speak up about this.
Yeah.
But like sometimes like it gets so much. Like it's a good burden, but it's hard.
Yeah.
Like the stories I read, the things that I'm finding about, the survivors I'm connecting with, amazing, and I wouldn't want to trade it for the world. But that's why it's so important, like Romans 12:2, renewing your mind, like thinking about that. What does it look like to think about what is true and noble and praiseworthy? That doesn't mean I'm not called to this area. I think all of us, have different areas in which we're called to, but I think, as a society and as Christ followers, we need to be speaking about this issue. For me, like that calling on my life might look different, but I think at some extent all of us should be speaking up about this issue and have a role to play. But it's tough to read about. Like sometimes I can't stomach it. Like if you want full transparency, I was reading a stat the other day. The average amount of times a sex trafficking victim is raped per year is 6,000 times. 6,000 times.
One victim.
One victim. So when we hear stuff like that, we can understand why they only live for about an average of 7 years once they're rescued. But like that number, I can't even comprehend. Like that's crazy to me. And hearing that people are stuck in this for like 10 years. You meet someone that has gone through like a really traumatic experience, not downplaying this, so understand my heart. Let's say one rape, that rest of your life you're dealing with that.
6,000 times.
6,000 times. Like I've seen people get restored by the love of Christ and go through healing, but that doesn't mean, it's not me saying that, they're not fully recovered. You never fully recover from that. Your worth doesn't change. You are still fully loved and fully known by the Lord. But I can't imagine coming out of that and not having Christ. There's amazing resources out there, but I've met, survivors who have come to know Christ, and they're able to stand strong in that and say, yep, like, he's healed my heart, but, like, I still have X, Y, and Z to deal with. Like, this was so traumatic for me. And that's what we need to be talking about. My friend said to me the other day, she put out, it's much deeper than just like the buying and selling.
Mm-hmm.
Like survivors, like their emotions are sold. Your heart is sold. Everything is put on the line. Like the time you go to the bathroom is controlled. Like all these things are so controlled in your life. It's so much more than just like the surface level stats.
Yeah.
And they're probably even underreported. They are for a fact. And this is the kind of stuff that's hard to talk about, and I know I'm just like putting out a lot right now, a lot of stats. I just mentioned, the ages that they're trafficked. I talked about how many times that like specifically sex trafficking victims are raped. This is hard stuff to stomach and to talk about, but we need to be a voice for the voiceless.
Heck yeah.
Yeah. Like, and again, like just as you're like saying with like Christ followers, like we're all super messed up, and like. I'm gonna start there. Like we're all like super broken. Like Mark 7 talks about, out of the heart of man comes like everything that's evil. and we have no grasp on good, and that's kind of been a huge thing on my heart recently. And it's like, I don't know, I'm just kind of amazed at your heart right now for this. Like, you know, like the fruits of the Spirit, like it's an obvious production of like good fruit that God has put in your life because of this passion. It's just, I'm so proud of you. I'm just kind of amazed because it's like, wow, you're like diving deep into all of this stuff and like equipping yourself and others to fight this. And like, I'm proud. I'm very proud of you, Sophia.
Yeah, Sophia.
Like, holy crap.
For real.
Like,
And it's like, dude, to see like callings being put on people's lives, like there's always like these callings of great things that you get to go into, and you get to like enjoy this so much. It's like, this is something that would be really, really hard for me to be like, okay, God, yeah, like I'm gonna really feel like,
right.
you know, this is something that I'm really passionate about, because I'm gonna get into a lot of mess with this. Like, I'm gonna get into like a lot of like you're saying, like stats you don't want to hear, stories you don't want to hear, stuff to take on that's hard, but like through that we take joy in those trials. And that's where I'm coming at this. I'm like, dude, there's no one else I want to like have a conversation with about this right now, like in my own life, than Sophia, because she has rounded herself so well in this topic.
Right.
Yeah.
And she's made it so obvious now that like this is a major issue, like completely, like throwing everything else aside, like this is an issue you have to talk about now.
Heck yeah.
Right.
Like this is definitely like on the forefront of my mind and my heart. Like just in these past 10 minutes, I'm like, this is the first time I've ever heard any of these statistics, by the way.
Right.
Like I've never,
Right.
it's never talked about.
Why though? Why do we not talk about it in schools? Why do we not hear about it enough in the church or the home? I
Yeah.
hear certain people talk about it. I'm not going to completely do a blanket statement bash, right?
Yeah.
Why not enough?
Yeah.
And I think, you know, it starts with saying, I'm going to be the change. After this podcast, I'm going to go have a conversation with someone. I'm going to talk about it. I'm going to go volunteer some of my time, or I'm going to put
Yeah.
up one social media post, right? And I think it can look different for everyone. I
Yeah.
do webinars a lot, and I talk about this issue, and I say, even if you literally just have one conversation at your dinner table, you are making a difference. It can
Yeah.
look different for everyone. But if you're willing to say, hey, I'm going to push against that discomfort, and I'm going to choose to have the conversation in spite of that, then that's where the change starts.
Yeah.
So you think like the reason why do you think the reason is like no one talks about it, like this issue?
A couple reasons.
Okay. Like just a bit.
Uncomfortable.
Right.
Mhm.
I'm like physically like
Yeah,
over
I'm like-
here out these statistics.
Can't see. You guys can't see me. I'm like
It's either
like tensing
uncomfortable,
up.
they don't know about it, or they're
Yeah.
part of the problem.
Dang.
Because it's happening in
Dang.
every single zip code.
Is it? I heard. I don't know if this is true. Isn't like Summit County like a big one?
It's a really big hub for it. I mean, Ohio is about 4th in the nation for
What?
Yeah.
human
Yeah.
trafficking.
We suck.
It's bad. And it's that way because of, you know, a myriad of reasons.
Right, right.
You could look at the opioid crisis. You could look at, you know, how our highway system is set
Yeah.
up, how it's so easy to get to other places from Ohio. A bunch of different reasons. But the issue exists here, and we're 4th in the nation for it.
Yeah.
Where's America among nations?
So we're the #1 consumer of sex worldwide, but when you look at the trafficking and persons report put out by the State Department, they would rank a bunch of different countries based off on their tiers, and so
Mhm.
there's 3 tiers, and tier 3 being the worst. Countries that are really bad for this, North Korea is one of them. I know that Myanmar is really bad. Tons of countries on there. Somalia, they're really bad. They're about, I think, in 2019, there were about 19 countries on tier 3 as well as special cases. And a lot of these are different third world countries, and that's where it's happening. A lot of times it's political and social instability. I know in Iran it's really bad. A lot of these countries, they don't recognize human trafficking as a crime, and so people aren't prosecuted. So what the Trafficking and
Wow.
Persons Report does is it'll assess governments' responses. So the U.S. State Department puts out the Trafficking and Persons Report, and they'll assess other governments, right, and their response to this under the 3 Ps, and it's prosecution, prevention, and prosecution. And what they do is they say, all right, how well are you living up to those 3 Ps? And a lot of these countries, they don't have laws in place, so people aren't being prosecuted. Sometimes they have the laws in place, but what's happening is that they're not enforcing them. I'm thankful here that we do recognize it. In
Right.
2000, we were able to pass the TVPA, the Trafficking Victims Protection Act, which is, awesome and a huge step for us. And since then, it's been reauthorized and different things have been added as well. And then in 2000, I believe in one or the same year, around the same time, the UN passed international legislation called the Protocol. So if we want to have an understanding about how governments or the UN have really taken on this issue, it's important to look at that. But just because the U.S. government says, okay, we recognize trafficking with the TVPA, we recognize human trafficking as this federal crime, it doesn't mean that the fight's over. Yeah. That's huge. That's monumental. I think that's amazing. But 21 years since then, we're still having this issue, and I don't believe we're going to fully eradicate it. But there's things that we can do to change it. I'm a firm believer that federal legislation does impact things. But I think at the state level, we need to be doing a lot. I mentioned law enforcement earlier. I think we need to be doing a lot with making sure that they have the resources that they need, because a lot of times these go underreported. They don't know how to identify victims, and sometimes even when they do, they're charged with prostitution rather than recognized as being someone who is a victim of this crime. There's a lot of things that we need to change, but the reason I keep pushing the community level is because I think that's where we're going to see the most change. People have their different opinions on that, but I think it's really community-based. That's why with Stop the Demand Project, this nonprofit that I launched, we're this fall, and we're going to spend the summer building out chapter programs for college campuses. I'm super excited about this. This is a new development that we've been working on, and I'm so glad that, the Lord has been giving us, opportunity in the executive board to really build this out. But what we're looking to do is create chapters for college kids to be a part of and get involved in their community. They can serve alongside other people. They can learn about this. We could bring in speakers. We're going to be launching one in Akron here, so you guys could be a part of it if you'd like to.
Hey, let's go.
There you go.
And then we're also going to have one in Colorado, and then we're looking to expand to other states as well. We don't want to bite off more than we can chew, right away. But what we want to do is start that community-based change. There are the task forces. There are the organizations.
Right.
We're the people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen the movie Taken?
Yes. It's actually one of my favorite movies.
Is that
Taken, National Treasure, my favorite movies.
Is Taken
National
like...
treasure.
Yeah,
Like,
it's a good
It's
movie.
up there.
Nicolas Cage.
Those are very different movies.
Politics, history.
Okay, all right. Oh, there we
Nick
go.
Cage.
Kind of
That's all
corny,
you
love
need.
it, but
Is Taken like as far as as a movie, because
Yeah.
it can't be how accurate do you think that is? Just
extremely inaccurate.
inaccurate?
Yes, so most trafficking happens by someone familiar. It's not the stranger. It's not. It can happen, right? I'm not
Right,
going to
right,
validate
right.
that. That
Right.
does happen a lot. Most of the time, someone is trafficked by someone that they know. What does that look like? Let's really take a second to break that down.
so weird.
I know.
That's terrible.
Remember what I said in the beginning? Traffickers target vulnerabilities.
Yeah.
This is I'm going to use the movie as an example too, right? We think about the girl that's taken by the stranger, chained up somewhere, something awful is happening, and she's in this abusive cycle. That happens.
Yeah.
But what happens most of the time with human trafficking? Let's play a scenario out. Someone is dating a guy for a long time, and I'm not just saying guys are always sex traffickers, but this is just the example. Let's say a girl is dating a guy for a long time, and it is, maybe begins or starts off as abusive, and then it slowly would spiral down into sex trafficking. So what I said about someone being sex trafficked, and sex trafficking is not the only form of human trafficking. There's labor, organ as well, but this is for the sake of the example. They would exploit their vulnerabilities and bring them into a cycle of sex trafficking. Going back to the idea that people are trafficked by someone familiar, that could be a parental figure, that could be a boyfriend, and most of the cases and the people and the survivors that I've met have been trafficked by someone that has have been close to them, whether that was an adoptive parent, maybe it was another family figure. And the reason that traffickers do that is because they use manipulative tactics.
Right.
It's not always the physical, it's a lot of the psychological as well. People sometimes ask, oh, well, why don't victims of trafficking just leave? there's this thing called trauma bonds too. Imagine if you're in a relationship with someone that you love and then you were to start getting sex trafficked as well. I mean, every scenario is different, but imagine that the lies you're being told.
Yeah.
That, like, maybe you're being promised love and acceptance or different financial factors as well, but you're caught up in this cycle, and it's not your fault. But this is what it looks like all the time. It's very, very, most of the time, somebody familiar. And that's the crazy part, because it's people closest to us.
Right.
The people that swear to protect you are the ones that are going back on you. A lot of people that end up being trafficked have a history of sexual abuse.
Right.
That's crazy.
The reason that I said 50 to 60% of the kids, that's what they're estimating, come out of the foster care industry are sex trafficked or put into labor trafficking, are because they're vulnerable. The reason that traffickers would look to them as, anyone can be a victim, but to them specifically is because they might have not had a stable home life. They don't know who to cling to. And so if they hear from a trafficker, I'll give you this, I'll give you money, I'll promise you love, all of these different things that sound good,
Yeah.
that's them preying on the vulnerable. Same thing with social media, that 12 to 14 group. If you're on social media and someone messages you pretending to be someone else, or it's somebody who, right, fill in the blank, it's a catfish, whoever, they're targeting people that are a lot of the times young, naive, and a lot of times have a broken home life. Let's say a kid goes on social media and they talk about how much they hate their mom. This is why I'm so against the young kids having social media and being public.
Yeah.
Even if you're private, you can have your family members seeing your social media account, and I'm not saying people should be aware of every family member, but these are just the stats. If you're posting about how much you hate your mom on your Instagram story and someone sees that, traffickers would say, I see a hurt, how can I use that for my gain? That's vulnerabilities, that's exploiting vulnerabilities. Traffickers only see profit in mind.
Yeah.
I mean, for one single person in human trafficking, they can make anywhere from like $10,000 to $70,000 per year on one person. That's just one person. There's so much money involved, and that's a huge factor. And a lot of it doesn't make it okay. But understanding why a lot of these traffickers are doing that, they see money and they don't see the person, which is awful.
Yeah. And to think that to think that there's so much value and there's so much uniqueness in people's lives. That's why I always hate conversations like these. They're hard to hear, because God has sat there and told us this person is unique, fearfully and wonderfully made, right? And that this person is getting used for this purpose, and not in their unique way, and not fearfully chasing after the. I mean, they totally could be, right? But the looking in on their lives is saying, look at how hurt this person is.
And coming out of that, you don't feel loved. You don't feel worthy. You feel
not even
used.
close.
You imagine being in that cycle for years, everything that's been told to you, how much damage that'll do to your heart and your soul. I can't imagine.
Yeah.
Going back to I wanted to touch on this too. Going back to the Taken movie example, there have been so many victims of human trafficking who have gone about their day-to-day life and still be trafficked. We could know people who are trafficked and not know, that they are in that cycle. That's why I'm such a huge advocate for teachers being trained, for medical professional to be trained. Why? Here's another stat. 85% of those, while in human trafficking, came into contact with someone in healthcare. They're still going to the doctor, and they might still be in school. What can we do to recognize the signs? That's why Stop the Demand, we're so passionate about people getting trained. That's why I think it's so powerful. What if we had training for freshmen at Akron, or when they came into Grace? Let's take training. Let's get the teachers trained. It doesn't mean it's gonna slip through the cracks, because it doesn't always look the same. It's gonna look different. Sometimes people are trafficked by strangers. Sometimes they're trafficked by family members.
But you can do something, right?
You can do something.
Anything is something.
What can we do to recognize the signs? What can we do to check in on people? I would rather be more in the camp of paranoid than pulled back.
Right.
Yeah.
But so what are the signs that like anyone listening or sees this like can like identify?
Yeah.
It's a fantastic question. It differs based on the type of trafficking. There's labor trafficking. Labor and sex trafficking are the most common types of trafficking in the U.S. But things that you can look out for, a lot of times you can see physical harm. Not always. Maybe, and a lot of these are vague too. That's why it's so hard to spot it. Maybe sometimes when people are trafficked, they'll have a number on them. Whether it's like on their pinky or like behind their ear, because they're branded.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Oh my goodness! No way.
So going back to this idea that they're not viewed as people, they're viewed as property. I have a friend who went through a long time to get a lot of those like taken off, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like over time, like having those like on you, like that's what can happen and that's what you can look out for. So it's not always a tattoo; it's a branding number.
Right.
So looking out for stuff like that. Maybe living conditions aren't suitable.
Mm-hmm.
Asking people about that. I know, especially if you're homeless or like in foster care too, you have a bigger target on your back. So if we know people that are in those situations, checking in on them and talking to them, like, hey, do you have resources? Do you have like a stable home life? Are you like getting like career services? All of these things too, because think about anything in life that provides stability. If you're lacking in that, you're more susceptible to this.
Yeah.
What can we do to look out for that stuff?
Should it like I don't know. I'm feeling convicted that like as Christians we should be like the forefront of this movement, right?
Yeah.
Because Proverbs 31:8, speak up for those who cannot speak up for themselves, for the rights of all who are destitute. Speak up and judge fairly. Defend the rights of the poor and the needy.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm even sitting there thinking like now, they like we were talking about, they feel hopeless, they feel abandoned, they feel like nobody loves them. Yet we have this person who always loves us, and so who are we to hold that to ourselves? Who are we to not go out there and spread? That's why I just sit there and I'm thinking about all the different ways that like you were saying, Isaac, like that we should be on the forefront of this as Christians. Because we have a hope that they can at least look to, and if like the Holy Spirit works in them, then they're gonna see a love that is so much greater than whatever the heck this person that's trafficking them is promising, or whatever the heck they're looped into, and psychologically they only are able to think this way about this person. That breaks that mold that they have and says, actually, there is someone that loves you for real, type of deal.
And how broken are these traffickers?
Yeah.
Right.
Like if you like put yourself.
How far you have to
Like,
get where you don't see people? You
It's
just
like,
see,
how hurt are they? It's like, and that's like Christ is like, no, don't hate them, love them, pray for them. Like
And
how,
that's the crazy
and
part.
it's like it does. Like you have like right now, I'm so angry and like bitter. I probably just sat here for like 10 plus minutes in silence, just kind of angry, because that's how it is. But it's like I had to I had to do a mental talk with myself. I'm like, Riv, like, what does like God say about like our enemies? What does God say about the people who inflict these things on us? You pray for them, and you pray for their hearts. You pray that there's like a change, that they somehow get introduced to Jesus, and that there's like conviction of the Holy Spirit. All of these things, like in the grand scheme of things, God is doing everything for His good works and purposes, and that doesn't mean that this is fair. It's not fair. I think it's horrible, but it is how it is. But it's like I have to remember I have a God who listens to me. And we did our last episode on prayer. Go back and listen to it. He's there 100% of the time. Last night I stayed up for like 3 hours just standing outside and looking at the sky, and like that, the God who put the stars in the sky and the tiniest little thing on the ground, and He knew it was going to be there when I was there. He knows those are all exactly how they're supposed to be, and He stayed and listened to my prayer. And you can pray to that same God who made everything that there is and pray for the hearts of these people that are trafficking. Like, it sucks that they're doing this, and it sucks that they were this broken, and it sucks that there's all these people that are getting trafficked. But like, you can only do so much, but this God can do it all. Thanks. So ask Him everything. Yeah. Ask Him for like anything. The more responsibility you give up to God, the more He'll take on, because when has God ever messed something He took responsibility for? Never one time. But yeah, we need to be praying to that God. This is a big thing. Oh my gosh.
I love how you talked about how we have full access.
Mm-hmm.
Because of what Jesus did, we can talk to the Father, and this is such an awful issue. And I think what you mentioned, Isaac, too, about as Christians, like, we need to be on the forefront of this. But it's so hard because I'm, like, easy to, like, I'm disgusted. Like, that's, like, an understatement.
Yeah.
Like, with
Right.
these traffickers. Like, I will never downplay my frustration and my hurt and my anger with what's happening, because that keeps me going, too, because it's wrong. It's morally wrong. You know, I have this high sense of justice in me that I think the Lord's instilled that keeps me going.
Yeah.
But I'm frustrated. But you're right. I do need to pray for them.
Mm-hmm.
I need to love. But even just in this fight, I think we need to be praying for strength as believers to speak up as well.
Mm-hmm.
So what
Yeah.
can we do, you know,
Yeah.
even after this podcast, whether it's getting involved in the community or church, I said it and I'll say it again, like, I'm a firm believer in having conversation. Because look how powerful this was.
Yeah.
We talked right now.
Yeah.
Ripple effects happen. This is going to spark a ripple effect.
Right.
Domino effect, whatever we want to call it.
Yeah.
That's what happens when we talk.
Yeah.
But if we don't talk about it, things don't happen.
And on average, like, from this conversation, at least 80 to 90 people are going to hear this
Yeah.
Right?
if our statistics hold. And then, like a ripple effect.
Yep.
Like
Yeah.
these 4 people just hit 90 people.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then, and so on and so on and so on.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
That's crazy.
That's crazy. Dang. Sophia, you are awesome.
Yes.
Everybody go check out Stop the Demand Project
Yep.
on Instagram, Facebook,
We're everywhere. TikTok, you name
TikTok.
We're everywhere.
it.
TikTok.
We are on TikTok.
like everywhere. Go check it out. Is there anything like we can post and we can start like sharing this post and stuff like that? Or
Definitely. We
that,
have a
like-
ton of educational videos and graphics that you guys can post.
Okay,
We're fundraising
sweet.
now, too, to get the chapter started. So if anyone wants to donate to that, all of that is in our link tree. Head over to our Instagram or our Facebook. You can find that there. And, we would love help, whether it's you volunteering for, the organizations that we promote and push out,
Yeah.
Yeah.
you talking about
Heck
these
yeah.
graphics, or if someone wants to donate, all of that,
Yeah.
so appreciated, right? Going back to you can help in so many different areas.
Yeah.
But we would love that. We'd love the support. We want people to join the fight against trafficking, whether it's us or another organization. I don't care as long as you're dedicated and you want to get
Yeah.
involved. That's what's most important to me.
Of course.
and
yeah.
and at least we can be praying.
Yeah.
Like
At
at
the very
least.
least.
At least we can be
Yes.
At
praying.
least we can be asking the God of the universe to be doing stuff.
Right. And like we all have social media. You can
Yeah.
pray, you can post. That takes 5 minutes. Not
It is.
even.
A story share, like, it could
Right.
take 10 seconds.
Right.
Even.
Bro.
Yeah.
Dang.
Bro.
That's crazy.
All right. Speak up. If you're listening out there, this is your call.
Yep.
Speak up for stuff. Watch out for those signs. Go check out Stop the Demand Project. Follow Sophia Fisher. Follow us, and we'll see it.
And live your life without apology.
And live your life without. Speak up without apology. Come
Hey,
on now,
there it
man.
is,
Come
there
on
it
now,
is.
man.
There you go.
All right. Peace.
Season 2. Out.